Welcome back to Red Wolf Roundtable here on ASU-TV. Hi, I'm Cooper Melder. Alongside me is not Tristan Harlan, it's Caton Marsh. Caton, how are you doing today?
Man, it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm doing great today that I get to be here talking sports with you and the people at home. Just a pleasure to be here.
Glad to hear it. And so right now it is the beginning of March, and that normally means some March Madness. But for us at Arkansas State, the madness won't begin to this weekend. But we got a little bit of baseball. And speaking of madness, this start hasn't been that great. Not looking too hot. You know, we had high expectations coming into the year with head coach Mike Silva. And, you know, that batting average, it's gone up just a bit. We're almost at a 5 ERA, and we're at a 3-9 record. But luckily, we have UAPB with this weekend series.
It's the battle of the not-so-great baseball teams.
Yeah.
UAPB is still defeated, and Arkansas State 3-9, and they just got swept recently. Not really a lot to write home about besides just they need to improve. You got the top of the order they're still really good. You got Kale, you got Will French, and you got Tollett too. They're all great at the top of the order, but it progressively just gets worse as it goes.
Yeah, and you know, they had this series against Jacksonville State, and in the first game, they got beaten 7 innings. The final score was 10-0, but initially the score was 13-0, and we got beat on a walk-off inside the park home run. Yes, a walk-off inside the park home run, something you don't normally really see in baseball. I mean, rare enough inside the park, but for a walk-off, I know it's not as bottom of the ninth, you know, walk off to win by 1. It was kind of to run rule, but still, an inside the park home run to win the game. They did take it off and say once the 10th runner went in, it was final there. But initially, it was a walk-off inside the park home run.
Well, for me personally and me watching the games, I guess the only thing to write home about is the Will French 4-for-4 4-double game, and then taking Ole Miss into extra innings. But yeah, other than that, it's been kind of rough for this Arkansas State baseball team.
Yeah, and then after that game, they had 2 more against them, and they lost in extras in both of them. So, you know, we're seeing this kind of trend where we're able to stay with the team after that first game. You know, that first initial game, when it seems like this year when we play a team to start the series, we're getting smoked. We're getting run ruled. Things are happening. And then after that, we settle down. I mean, against Eastern Illinois, when we played them, they went in, beat us in the first doubleheader game. We settled down, ended up bouncing back. But, you know, it's early in the season. It's the first year for head coach Silva. And, you know, I don't know. I'm going to be honest. I kind of had high hopes coming in. I mean, he's 3-9. The team's batting just at 233. Like I said, the ERA is almost up to 5. So we have to realize it's year 1. I mean, we kind of got spoiled with Coach Hodson in his first year making it to the Sun Belt Championship game. But it's still year 1 for Coach Silva. So this prompts me the question, what can the Red Wolves do to really kind of turn around? Does it start with this series against UAPB?
I would say absolutely. UAPB's once again defeated, and this can really boost their confidence, hopefully with a 3-win series. Cross our fingers, of course, but when you get given something like this, you got to take it, and you got to push out, and you got to win. This is really, I feel like, how they get over the hump.
Yeah, and this is kind of the time in years past where I've really seen this team able to string a little win streak going, because UAPB, not the best baseball school. They don't really have too much success. I'm not saying we do, but UAPB, they're normally the team you can kind of get going and, you know, get a couple wins out of them. But you know what? That's all we have for this first segment. Stick around. We got some basketball to talk about coming up. Stay right here. You're watching Red Wolf Roundtable on ASU-TV.
Students should watch ASU-TV just to see the creativity that a college student can get. The creativity that some of these students have is truly amazing. getting that experience can really just take you further, and I feel like our program does that for a lot of students.
I think one of the things I learned at Arkansas State was life is 10% of what happens to you, 90% of how you respond to it, and that's just something that I live by.
A-State is home, and they're going to treat you like you're a part of the family.
ASU-TV, covering all your favorite sports. From Red Wolf Roundtable to West Side football and more, ASU-TV has you covered. Tune in now to ASU-TV for news and coverage on these sports and more.
Wolf Roundtable here on ASU TV, and now it's time to dive into some basketball. We're going to start with our women's team. They finished second in the Sun Belt Conference, and so that will lead them to play on Sunday at 2:30 or 2 o'clock on ESPN+. And you're seeing the bracket now. It's the most talk about bracket in all of Twitter, all of sports right now. Everybody's talking about it. They won a college basketball game so they can, get the worst seed and try to do the gauntlet. But man, looking at this bracket, it's just pure madness.
Well, we got Troy, the winner of the Troy and whoever game, depending on who that is. And speaking of, the reason why we're the 2 seed is because we beat Troy at home on the final game as an upset. They were 19-11. I believe they were at the 2 seed behind James Madison before the game, and then they go into their home stadium and beat them by, I believe, 5. But they were crushing them for the longest time. And I kind of want to talk about that for a little bit. Is this team was dominant. You could see how they were pressing up on Troy, and it was getting them flustered. They were turning the ball over. They weren't hitting good shots, and Arkansas State was all over the place. But then they came back down to earth. There were some questionable layup shot selections and some rough defensive patches that they just kind of missed, and then simple turnovers. But for the most part, this team played great, and we get to play Troy or whoever the winner is, and that's just, I feel like, an immense confidence booster, especially for this tournament.
Yeah, and something else, their final 2 games, they played Southern Miss, who was really supposed to be kind of a team you should be able to walk over, have an easy win. Only ended up winning by 1, and that's something I've kind of noticed with this team as we've gotten later into conference play, is when it's getting to the second half of play, it's almost like they'll build up this huge lead like they have against Troy, and then it's coming down to the end, and they're just scrapping for a win. They're trying to figure out any way they could keep the lead so they don't get beat. But it leads me to think, okay, with conference tournament time, you're going to need to find ways to win, and they've been exactly doing that. Yeah, they've been blowing some leads, having some close games against teams they shouldn't have, but they're finding a way to win. And so, yeah, James Madison went undefeated in conference. They had the 1 seed on lock, but still getting that 2 seed with a whole brand new roster for Coach Rogers in her 3rd year. You have to be, pretty high on her, just excited to see what is to come. I mean, you're seeing it now. She went 19-10, second in standings, averaging about 72.6 points per game, and the team shooting almost 40% from the field.
Well, yeah, this is really her full 2nd year of coaching, if I'm correct. Mm-hmm. And this team has really just turned it around extremely quick. I love the defensive style that they do, the full court press, because it does get teams in their head. And I feel like the aggressiveness. Some teams can't prepare for that. And these girls are just all over the place. They're here, they're there. You never know when you're going to get attacked by another defender. This defense is insane. I love the effort that they give in, game in and game out. And yeah, like you were saying, you got to be excited for a coach to come in and turn around the environment and have a whole new team and go 19-10 on the season and be second in the Sun Belt.
Yeah, and when looking at this team, they do the full court press. They're pressuring. They're trying to score a bunch of points. And at the beginning of the year, when me and Tristan had that talk with Coach Rogers, that little sit-down interview before the season, we kind of mentioned how when it gets to tournament time and their style of play might come to their favor, especially with the gauntlet of the bracket. You might have a team that's played already 3 games. They're dog tired. They have to come play Arkansas State, who's fully rested, who's been waiting all week to just go, who are ready to go out there and attack. And they're going to be outrunning teams. I feel like this could help them later with only having to win 2 games. If we do have to play James Madison, evenly matched, but if we can either play Troy or if Troy gets beat, this will really come to our advantage because, like you said, they're all over the place. High intensity on defense, offense. They like to get a bunch of points, but it's will Troy have an upper hand if they do win and end up playing us to already have a game under their belt in that arena.
That's the thing. That's another great point that you brought up. If Troy loses, then it's great for Arkansas State because you have multiple teams that at that point would have to play multiple games. And you said Arkansas State's fully rested, but then it begs the question of kind of like other sports in general, if you rest for too long, how is that going to affect you in the game that you end up playing later on?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it with baseball. The 1 seed, they get that bye, and then the team in the wild card round, who end up winning, they'll go on and end up knocking off that 1 seed because it just seems like they're more in rhythm, things like that. So it all just depends because, a thing that might have a problem with them, you only have about a couple players on that team with Anna Griffin, Chrislyn Rose, and Winter Rogers who played in that arena before. You're having a bunch of girls coming into this year not playing in the Pensacola Bay Center. They've never really shot around in there, so it might be a slow start for the Red Wolves, but initially I do feel like they have all the pieces to go on for a little tournament run.
Yeah, absolutely. I think ultimately with how high motor these girls play, I think the rest will give them the upper hand, but you might see some rust here and there. But going on about women's basketball, we had 2 players on the Sun Belt All-Conference list. We have Zion Shannon, 2nd team, and Chrislyn Rose, 3rd team.
Yeah.
And how do you feel about that?
I'm excited for them. It's good to see Chrislyn Rose, who's been at Arkansas State for a bit now, to finally get her shot to shine, and she gets honored with that. And it's good to see a newcomer for Arkansas State end up getting the award. It's been an all-around team. It's just a matter of fact of who was going to end up getting the honor because I feel like there's multiple players on that team that could eventually got it.
Well, and exactly to your point is, do you believe someone like Kennedy Montu should have gotten on the Sun Belt All-Conference list?
If she was more consistent, I would say yes. I mean, she did provide a good help on defense, but it was kind of, if she was on her game, she was on it. If she was off, it was kind of non-existent. But I'm going to have to stop you right there. We've talked enough about women's basketball, but stay around for the last segment. We're going to hit on the men's and their little co-championship regular season run. You've been watching Red Wolf Roundtable here on ASU-TV. Don't go anywhere.
When you say experience counts, it's experience that counts for a lifetime.
Boxes, I cannot fit in the boxes. Stop it, quitting was never an option. Exhausted, this passion is never exhausted. And you cannot stop it, nah, you cannot stop it. was never an option.
ASU-TV, shows like Red Wolf Roundtable, ASU-TV News, Westside Football, and more. Gain real-life experience while doing what you love. Get involved with ASU-TV today.
Red Wolf Radio is a student-led organization at Arkansas State University wanting to hear your takes on pop culture, music, the news, and college life. Just about anything you can think of. Located in the Education and Communications building on campus, we are always looking for more volunteers. So if you're an Arkansas State University student, no matter the major, and this is something that interests you, shoot us an email at redwolfradio@astate.edu. That's redwolfradio@astate.edu. Let them hear you howl.
Welcome back to Red Wolf Roundtable here on ASU-TV, and now we're in the final segment of this episode for today, and we're going to talk about the men's basketball team. Like I mentioned before we went to break, they did win regular season champion along with 4 other teams, James Madison, us, Troy, and South Alabama, and somehow, some way, we fell all the way to the 4th seed.
Yeah, unfortunate when you look at the record. You see you got first, what was it, like 22-10, and you tie for first in conference, but because of getting, was it swept by South Al and losing to Troy, didn't.
I know, so we got swept by South Alabama. I agree they should be in front of us. Then we got beat by James Madison. We only played them once, so I understand them getting the first 2 seeds. And then I'm a little confused on how Troy jumped us because we split the series with them. We went to their place, beat them. They came to Arkansas, they beat us. And so we have the better overall record than them, but I think that, like you said, it went to point differential or something like that.
That's usually what they do.
Yeah, but either way, the 4th seed, and James Madison or South Alabama, those are 2 teams I was hoping to try to avoid because, South Alabama, they just run this zone defense against Arkansas State that just seems like we can't figure out. They just know how to get into our head and, force us to knock down threes. And every time we played South Alabama this year, we have not been able to hit the 3-point shot.
Well, and your point going on to that, ULM, we were toe-to-toe with them for really a half, or so I can't even, a half. So I don't know how to go about that, but they weren't knocking down their 3-point shots really until the 10-minute mark of that second half. And it ended up causing us to be super close with a team that you just wouldn't expect. And when they started getting into their rhythm and they started hitting the 3-point shot with Pinion, with Ford, with Dominguez, all of them, that's when they started to separate. But like you were saying, when they were struggling to hit the 3-point shot, it was a close game, and it shouldn't have been.
Yeah, and before we get into everything else, we have some awards. Isaiah Nelson, a person me and Tristan talked about a bunch last week's episode, he won National Player of the Week, got the Oscar Robinson Trophy. I'm pretty sure he had like 20 points, 20 rebounds, one of those games.
Absolutely deserved.
He's just been absolutely dominating here at the end of the week. Taryn Todd got 1st team, and then Isaiah Nelson got 3rd team for the All-Sunbelt Conference. So, shout out to them, and, hopefully they can keep it going. But, Coach Hodson in his 2nd year, back at the 4th seed, after thinking, we're going to be in 1st place all year, and then at the end of the year, we kind of dropped down. But, 22-9, averaging almost 80 points per game, shooting about 43% from the field, Overall, besides these past 5 games, you take these past 5 games out, they've played tremendous all year.
Well, so this is what I wanted to talk about, and especially with the women's too. We're in the conference tournament now, so everybody leading up onto this point of where Arkansas State plays on Saturday, everybody's 0-0. I feel like you have to have that mindset. This team is so good. They have so many great players, ones that can slash, the ones that can make 3 points, the one that can just do it all, and Taryn Todd. This team is amazing, and if I hope they keep that mindset that we're 0-0 and moving on is a win for everybody. So it just keep that mindset. Know that your team is great. You're really deep, especially when you have someone like Kobe Julian, who was picked to be the preseason All Sun Belt Conference Player of the Year, and he just didn't get utilized much. But I feel like that goes to show how deep this team is and how good they truly are.
Yeah, and that kind of leads me into what I was going to ask you next. Who do you expect to really step up when it comes to tournament time? I mean, is it going to be Taryn Todd, who's been dominating all year long, or is it going to be Isaiah Nelson? Is he going to step up, or is it even going to be Terrence Ford? T-Baby, he had a great year at that point guard position. I mean, I felt like it kind of got swept under the rug, not really talked about how good of a season Terrence Ford had after battling injury all last year, who never really saw the floor because he was just dealing with injury, and to be able to come back and put into the starting point guard role, he really stepped up. Who do you think will be the guy that will take over the tournament and have that next step?
So I wanted to go into this, and I'm not hating in any sense. I think Isaiah Nelson was absolutely deserved of the Oscar Robertson Player of the Week because of the week he had with 43 points and 40 rebounds. But that being said, that ULM game, he didn't make his first shot until the very end of the first half, and before that, he was 0 for 7. Mm-hmm. I think he's a great rebounder, offensive and defensively, and it sticks out like a sore thumb when they play. But he has to make the routine stuff. He was missing the layups. He was missing just the routine shots that if he ended up making, that would have separated the score just in general in any game, but in the specific Arkansas State versus ULM game. So I'm hoping he steps up offensively and he ups his shooting percentage a little bit more, because this guy is a great player. He is crucial to this team. It's evident that he's been playing better, but once he starts making those routine shots, this team is going to be so great.
Right, and if the A-State men's team does win their game against whoever they'll end up playing, they'll end up having to play South Alabama for the third time. Do you think, I'm not trying to look ahead and just kind of throw off the first game, because you got to win that first one before you can look at the 1 seed, but do you think if they end up winning and having to go play South Alabama, that, they'll play better, have a little bit more of advantage after playing a team twice in one season and now playing the third time to a team that swept them? Because I do believe it was either Louisiana or App State we played twice last year, and they swept us both. It's either one of those two teams, but they swept us in the regular season, and then we came conference tournament time and absolutely dominated them. Do you think that will kind of be able to help them after seeing the team in this way they play their zone twice, or do you think, they have our number and we're just not going to be able to beat them?
No, absolutely. I think that's a great point that you brought up, is you see when you have the rival teams that play each other constantly, you can kind of get a sense of what they do. And if they understand and they watch that film and they go over it over and over, which they will, I think they can have their number. And something that we talked about last segment is that this James Madison team is like the last team to play. So they have a long time before they play again. It gives Arkansas State a chance to get that warm-up game in, and hopefully they execute and win and progress on. But it leaves James Madison stone cold, and then you watch the games that they've done and just understand what they do. If they just stay in rhythm to where they were at before they left in that last few minutes of that ULM game, I don't see why they couldn't.
Yeah, and so we will possibly play Marshall, and that's a team I really don't want to have to play again. I feel like that would just be, everyone's kind of looking, okay, we got South Alabama if we win in the next round, kind of focusing on South Alabama. But there's a Marshall team. If they win, they'll end up having to play us, which, I mean, we watched it on ESPNU or ESPN2, whichever it was. And, you know, they had our number, and you're seeing it now. We have the quarterfinals on March 8th, and then on Sunday, March 9th, will be the semi, and then championship Monday on March 10th. So if you want to punch that ticket into March Madness, we got 3 dates for the men's that we have to win. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and for the women, it's just Sunday and Monday. But, you know, what is it going to take for this team to win if one of the games, that three-point shot's not falling for them? I mean, you've seen it where we've had an okay first half shooting the basketball, and then the second half starts, and we cannot hit a three-point shot to save our life, and it's almost like Coach Hodson doesn't make any adjustments.
Well, I hope, and another thing that I wanted to point out, especially in that ULM game, was their perimeter defense. It seemed like when they crashed on the ball for the rebound and they didn't end up getting it, it would leave someone open at the perimeter shot. And ULM had a freshman, I believe, I can't remember his name, but he ended up having over 20, I believe around 20 points, and he was knocking down threes left and right. It kind of closed the gap because they were up big. I think it was a double-digit score, absolutely. And once they kind of started lacking on that perimeter defense, it closed the gap. They went into half, they came back, and ULM was already, they had a comeback game before. I don't know if they closed it out or not, but it was the same situation. They came back, and they made it a game when it didn't need to be. So like you were saying, you got to hit the threes, and if they don't, you just got to play better defense. I feel like that's ultimately the end goal. Guard the three and play better at the three.
Yep, and if you're keeping track of the tournament, Southern Miss did win last night, along with the Cajuns. They won, so they'll be moving on playing today. You have Southern Miss taking on Georgia Southern, and then Louisiana taking on Old Dominion tonight. First game's at 5, second game's at 7:30. So, you know, bunch of basketball left to be played. I mean, hopefully we can end up playing 3 more games, but, you know, what's your prediction for how this tournament's going to go, men and women? Let's start with the men since we're talking about them, but what's your kind of prediction? Do you think they're going to go all the way and win it, or do you think they might get beat in the championship game or something like that?
Well, I'll always stick with the bias of Arkansas State.
Okay.
I think both teams are super electric, really everywhere. If they're on their game, I can see them going all the way. I'm rooting for Arkansas State to hit the March Madness bracket and hopefully be that Cinderella story that in years past we've had.
Yeah, and so y'all just need to stick around and see what's going to end up happening because, you know, here at Red Wolf Roundtable, we always do a March Madness special, and it'd be great to, you know, have another March Madness special, but this time with, you know, maybe the women's on their side having the Red Wolves, or why not both? That would be a successful season for both teams. But, you know, that's all the time we have here for this week's episode. I want to thank you for being on and taking over in Tristan's absence. I hope you enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
Good. Well, thank you all for watching. You've been watching Red Wolf Roundtable here on ASU-TV. We'll see you next week.